Hi again. In this lesson, I'll tell you how to change quoted speech to reported speech. First, you need to change the punctuation. In quoted speech, you need a comma after the reporting verb, but in reported speech, you don't. Compare the punctuation in these two sentences. Jessica said, "This grammar lesson is easy." Jessica said that this grammar lesson is easy. Or we can leave out that. As you've learned with other kinds of noun clauses, the word that is optional. Jessica said this grammar lesson is easy. For questions, we never introduce reported speech with that. Instead, we use a question word like who, what, when, where, why, or how. For yes/no questions, we use if or whether. Reported speech uses a noun clause, so remember to use statement word order, not question word order. Carlos asked, "How many grammar lessons are there?" Carlos asked, "Is the next lesson very difficult?" Carlos asked how many grammar lessons there are. Carlos asked if the next lesson is very difficult, but not or in reported speech, we have to change the verb. Let's review some of the verb tense changes. An imperative becomes an infinitive. For example, listen. The grammar coach said to listen. The simple present becomes the simple past. Do you understand? She asked me if I understood. The present progressive becomes the past progressive. I am explaining how to use noun clauses. She said she was explaining how to use noun clauses. The simple past becomes the past perfect. We learned about the passive in the last chapter. She said we had learned about the passive in the last chapter. The present perfect becomes the past perfect. We have already studied all of the English verb tenses. She said we had already studied all of the English verb tenses. Please note, these are general guidelines. Sometimes you may hear speakers do things a little differently, but if you follow these rules, you won't make a mistake. Here are some of the ways modals change in reported speech. Can becomes could. May becomes might. Must and have to become had to. And will becomes would. Next, we usually have to change the pronouns in reported speech. Take a look. John said, "I'll see you later." John said that he would see me later. Finally, we also have certain other words that sometimes change in reported speech. These are a little tricky because they aren't consistent. Here are some examples. This often becomes that, and these can become those. Have you finished this chapter? The teacher asked if I had finished that chapter. Here can become there. I'll be here all day. The teacher said that she'd be there all day. Sometimes time expressions change in reported speech. now might become then or at that time. Class is ending now. The teacher said that class was ending then. Or, the teacher said that class was ending at that time. Today might become that day. We have a test today. The teacher said we had a test that day. Yesterday can become the day before or the previous day. We had a test yesterday. The teacher said we had had a test the day before. Tomorrow can become the next day or the day after. We will have a test tomorrow. The teacher said that we would have a test the next day. Let's review. When you're changing quoted speech to reported speech, think about these things: the word order of the noun clause, the verbs or modals, the pronouns, and other words like the demonstratives here and there or certain time expressions.